Hello, I'm Jessie Gray. Welcome to Personalities. Herbs are a controversial subject. Herbs spelled Herbs. Controversial because there are many people who believe that they are medical remedies for certain illnesses, and others, many in the orthodox medical profession, who deny any use for them whatsoever and call people who do believe in them quacks or otherwise. However, the orthodox medical profession is beginning to take more interest in herbs, and we have one of the most foremost authorities with us today on herbs. His name is John Lust. Thank you for being here, Mr. Lust. Mr. Lust is the author of many books. We have a few of them with us today. The herb book, which I'll hold up in soft cover, is published by Bantam. It's in all leading bookstores and, of course, all health food stores. It's also published in hardcover. Another book we brought was the book Drink Your Troubles Away. Drink doesn't mean hard liquor, does it, Mr. Lust?
No, not at all.
That's another way to drink your troubles away temporarily, but this is a more permanent way. What do you drink?
Drink Your Troubles is a book about raw juice therapy, the use of raw vegetable juices
Vegetable juices.
Raw vegetable juices, yes, in order to obtain the proper nutrition in its most natural and concentrated form.
What troubles do you drink away?
Well, everyone has some slight or chronic ailment that they're bothered with. And,
such as?
Well, such as poor digestion is very prevalent. Or they could have kidneys not functioning properly. Or they could have a liver that needs regeneration. And by going on a strict regimen of juices and eliminating many of the harmful foods and meat that they had been eating before, they will find that, for one thing, if they're overweight, their weight will go down, and with it, the organs of their system will all function better because they're getting the natural form of nourishment.
Do you think it's safe for people to diagnose themselves, say, oh, I must have a liver problem, and then go on the liver?
Well, I'd say diagnose yourself within certain limits.
It can't hurt you anyway.
No, you're your own best doctor. You know yourself better than you can tell another person, even if the person is a doctor. You know how you feel better than you can convey that message to him. And so you do play a very big part in diagnosing your own ailment.
So you believe the average person can diagnose many of their ailments?
Definitely. They know how they feel. There are certain barometers, too, that they can be aware of.
Well, let's take for instance, and then we'll get back to herbs again, but many people have lower back pain. They might, and supposedly most of the United States has lower back pain, and most of it is not connected with the kidneys. But someone might say, oh, I've got pain in my lower back, it must be kidneys. And then
strangely enough, lower back pain is usually caused by nerves. The nerves, the muscle spasms that take place, there's a huge network of muscles that come together in the lower back. And at the same time, there's like there is throughout the rest of our body, these network of nerves. Well, when a person is under a continual stress for a long time, or has been engaged in some particular form of exercise, for example, both of those things can bring on lower back pain. And they are more prevalent than people realize. The usual thing is for lower back pain, go to the doctor, and he asks the questions and says, keep it warm, and also take these pills. And the pills are a harmful drug to deaden the pain, and they should be avoided to begin with. The heat is excellent, and if it's moist heat, it's still better.
But say they decided they had kidney problems because of lower back pain.
If they figure they had kidney problems, there would also be other symptoms that would indicate that. Right, and then you would get into
books that they can buy to more or less give an accurate diagnosis of some of these symptoms, of some of these ailments through symptoms?
Yeah, in fact, there is a a book out in paperback now called that everyone should have for their own information, and it's called Gray's Anatomy. And years ago, this book was published for the medical students, and today it's published for the mass market because people are beginning to realize that they have to once again take an interest in their own bodies and be more self-reliant in matters of health. Besides the cost of medical care escalating out of reach and out of reason compared to what would probably affect the cure, the treatments are often will create new problems.
Exactly. Well, I think...
And so we're faced with all these problems simply because in one way or another, we've been led away from the fact that we are born of nature, created by nature. Our food was supplied in nature by the plants that grow and the water. We have everything to be healthy, the fruit, the vegetables, and there isn't any reason why we can't look at our health as not such a complicated matter that we have to go and pay $30 to sit in an office and wait for 15 minutes talking and get handed a drug. That's not the answer. The answer is that we must once again discover our bodies and how they work. So that's why I said this Gray's Anatomy is good to begin with, because in that way you lose some of the mysteriousness. You overcome that of how your body functions. Your body is a network of systems and organs and glands and parts that are all interrelated in such a manner that there is no engineer on earth that could ever come close to the perfection that exists in your body or in anyone else's body for that matter. Every human being has this magnificent creation, and they have to look after that themselves, first of all. Naturally, if a condition persists, and if something is beyond their simple remedies, the simple remedies are not bad because they're simple. They're good because they're simple. But sometimes they're due to the modern detrimental effects on our health, more serious problems do arise. And they need the attention then of a trained physician and someone who can look into it further. But I say first try yourself. And my books are designed for that, to give authoritative information in a practical manner so that the average person living today can read in the book that if they have varicose veins or piles or whatever, it'll tell them in there what to do about it. It'll tell them where to get the herbs, or in the case of Drink Your Troubles Away, it'll tell you to get yourself a juicing machine and make vegetable juices and use those juices. And you regenerate your body, because your body is constantly breaking down and regenerating. Give it the right materials to regenerate with.
And you believe that many bodies can heal themselves given the tools to do so.
There's only one healing power. There's only nature cures.
That all bodies can.
Right. And there's nothing that a medical doctor or any other kind of a doctor can do. Nature does the healing. If I'm shaving and cut my ear and it's a bloody mess, with the razor, and then, the next day that's all healed and you don't see a sign anymore, that's a miracle. But that's nature. And that same regeneration can take place anywhere in your body where something's wrong, provided you haven't had too much surgery to remove all the parts that do the work, like your tonsils or your appendix. All these things were put there for a reason, I think. And we're somewhat crippled in our resistance to disease if we start taking out. There's very often, popular operations, they're the fad. Like now it's the hysterectomies that are done unnecessarily. I read in the Times just this week that we have an oversupply of surgeons, and with that, an oversupply of unnecessary surgery.
Well, that is evidently documented medical proof that they, meaning I don't know who, but the medical authorities are looking into. To get back to your book, let's briefly tell people what you cover in the herb book, and just for people who might not know, what are herbs?
Well, herbs are, you might call them weeds. And incidentally,
simply plants, right?
Yes, you can you can pronounce herbs or herbs.
Well,
Either way is correct. If you're in England, you say herbs, and if you're in this country, you say herbs, but actually both ways are correct.
Well, I was trying very carefully to say herbs and leave out the
No,
H.
either way is correct. And this book is designed to take a person who has a sort of an intuitive attraction to something natural in their medical approach to their health. And if they buy this book, they will be led from the beginning of the idea of using herbs. The history is there. There's a glossary that clears up some of the phraseology that's used in herbs. Their properties are called different names, which most people aren't familiar with. So that's all explained in there. The various ways that you use to apply the herbs. You don't just drink herb tea, which people think maybe that's it. Now, that's a big part of using herbs and the easiest way to get started. But you also use herbs as poultices. For example, on that lower back pain you mentioned, you could use warm poultice with herbs in there. And that could be
Are they literally absorbed through the skin?
Yes, they have. You have to first wet the skin. When you wet the skin first, then it becomes more absorbed.
Do you use also tonics? Do you literally make up what would be an herbal medicine?
Well, I haven't seen too much of that in this country, but in Europe, where the herb method has not really lost out so much over the years, there it's a much older culture, and they have never really given up so much on herbs. And the using the herbs was carried on more from generation to generation. So therefore, these things are more readily available in Europe. However, they're also now becoming available in this country.
Well, now, in the herb book, you do give formulas so that people aren't lost and they hear, just to pick one, bayberry leaf is good for such and such, but you have no idea how much to take, how to take it. You do make up formulas and tell people how to take it.
I have it right in there. It tells you the quantities to use, and it tells you how much to take. Like take 1 to 1.5 cups a day in mouthful doses. And that
is it hard to make up these formulas?
Not at all. It's very simple. These formulas in here are mainly formulas for tea.
Would most people get herbs through a herbal store of some sort?
There's an herb store, herbalists, and also the health food stores have begun to stock quite a large selection of herbs, and also in various forms.
Has the medical profession or have universities begun investigating? Of course, many of our present drugs, we were just talking before the show, Digitalis, the drug for heart, is based on foxglove.
On one of my research trips to Germany, I went to a city called Coburg, which is near Nuremberg, and it's the county seat, and they have this library there that goes back centuries. And they had a display of herb books, and so that interested me, and I went, and I discovered that there was a definite point where, prior to that, the herbs were common use and for sale at certain prices. And then, I don't know anymore which century it was probably the 15th or 1600s, that the pharmacists, the apotheker, they call them there, or chemists, began to compound their drugs from these herbs. That's when it started, and it's still practiced today.
Now, currently, though, are universities becoming reinterested?
Oh, definitely, yeah.
In herbs? Are they researching them?
I spent time at Duke University because there they have an excellent botanic medicine course. And also the professor of medicine there, the top man, Dr. Walter Kempner, he was imported by Duke from Europe because of his knowledge in plants.
Was he, for that specific reason?
Right, and he is a pure scientist, and he himself has said to me, we can do all we can, but only nature heals. And all we can do is try to figure out what is nature trying to do. Nature is constantly trying to save you from dying and to have a good, healthy life and to be able to enjoy the wonderful things that are available in life.
Well,
the thing of falling in love is a wonderful experience, and what it brings about is what nature wants to bring about is to have more people, right?
Right. On the other hand, nature seems to be at opposites, because there's millions of little bugs who also would like to eat you.
Well, there's a reason for them. I mean, there's a
So
reason
it's
for
not
bacteria,
completely benevolent,
and
I wouldn't say.
there's a reason for
from our vantage
for
point.
all these kind of bugs in nature's scheme. I have always felt that I'm not going to argue with nature.
Would you
No
like
way.
to argue sometimes with nature?
There's no way that I would be qualified, because unless I was a higher being, there's no way that any person could ever do it better than nature.
Well, I agree, but we're leading a little away from the subject. Since we are, I'd love to ask you this question. What you do believe that nature wants us to be well, happy, etc.
Yes.
Why is nature, do you think, and of course no one probably knows the answer, set up so that one life must always live upon the death of another? Whether it's killing a carrot, which now supposedly the new science has found out that when you chop up a carrot, a terrific amount of electricity is released upon the death of that carrot, just as it would be with an animal, so that whether it's plant or animal that you're eating, you and every other creature on earth, including the germs that need to eat on you, have to live by literally upon the death of another. Have you figured that philosophically?
Yeah, philosophically, it's easy to see that it's nature's master plan, is that we're all born and we live and we die. It's it's a continuous
But have you reconciled that with the
cycle.
point that nature wants us to be healthy and happy and live a
Definitely.
long life?
That I figured out that is nature's greatest desire, and that is the design, that we are supposed to live a happy life and a healthy life. And it's only by the degree that we stray from the path that nature has set down that we're going to suffer. Nature is also a good bookkeeper, and you can't trespass on the way nature intended things to be. It would be as if you had an automobile and you were supposed to put a certain kind of gasoline in it, and then you said, well, no, I'm going to put chocolate syrup in it. Well, the motor isn't going to run. But I mean, that's kind of a poor comparison.
No,
but I mean, we have to learn, what is nature trying to do? And I'm convinced, because in love, nature has provided man and women with the highest degree of feeling well-being and ecstasy. And so that's like the peak of what you can expect on Earth.
You talk of love, and I know you don't mean it in just a one-to-one personal relationship. You mean it as love for the human.
Love is in many forms, right? I mean, including
are you
sexual,
a very religious man?
I certainly am. Yeah, I believe that there must have been some.
Do you believe that you yourself were destined to follow the field that you've chosen?
In a way, I think it may have. I think too, things happen through fate, But
is fate
as fate had it, there was my uncle and my father who started the thing in 1896, and they started this publishing business, and the idea of the health food stores. Dr. Benedict Lust, that was the uncle, and he opened the first health food store.
And he is a very famous man.
Famous man in goodwill worldwide. I can go anywhere in the world. India, Gandhi was his friend. Anywhere in the world, South Africa, Japan, Australia. And because of my name, I have entree anywhere and goodwill, because I come with goodwill too.
Did you learn did your uncle start you on the road to?
Yes, he did.
What naturopathic medicine and herbs in particular?
The handicap that I faced was that he really died before his time. He had a sanitarium in Butler, New Jersey, which burned, and he was hurt there in a fire and then died a year later, and he was 74. And I was the only one in the family who wanted to keep on this work that he had started. I felt the truth in it. Yet everybody figured that's funny, that health food store thing.
How old were you when he died?
I was 26.
But still had learned quite a bit from him. You talk in the preface of your book.
That was all I did.
Taking
I
walks.
grew up in it from the age of 14 on. I was down at the sanitarium in Florida and worked there with him. And then every year after that, up in Butler, New Jersey, and worked in the sanitarium.
Could he walk through the woods and point out different plants and tell you what?
Yeah, that's what we used to do. We always had our mornings together, our breakfast, and we talked over these things. And I feel that it was a case where I could sit at the master's knee and learn all these things. That he was a visionary too. He could see that this was right, this naturopathy, he called it. And I felt too it's the truth. And
what did you think?
You can't go wrong with the truth.
What do you think that there was in you that saw this, while the rest of your family said, "Oh, there he goes again"?
Well, no, I think that it's everyone has their own talent and their own. We're all men and we're all women, but we're all different too. Everybody is different. There are no two people identical, no more than there are two snowflakes identical. Yet they're all snowflakes. Or blades of grass. If you take two blades of grass, they're not identical. Never. And it's the same with man.
But I wonder what quality it was in you that made you different from the rest of your family, in the fact that you believed and respected what he said, rather than just,
it just makes
said, "Oh,
sense
that's
to
the way
me
he
that
is."
if you're going to live a life and you have to be out in the commercial world because I had a family and 5 children to support, that you have to also be practical. And it seemed to me that it was a wonderful opportunity to combine a humanitarian effort where you devote yourself to this work, although in those years no one was very interested, but to keep the word alive, it seemed to me good enough, and I would do that. And so I just did that all my life. And I was able to raise my family and all, and continue publishing the books.
Now, you've continued your studies on your own. I want to ask you, have you used yourself in many experiments using herbs? I mean, have you cured yourself? Have you tried them out on yourself to see what they do?
Yeah, a number of times. I do that every once in a while, every year or two. I'll go. I found it very difficult to find a place here in the United States where you could really do that and work at it sincerely. There was always some other, where you go to a resort where they advertise that they have a health department or whirlpool baths and all that. Usually it's only a little bit and it isn't taken seriously. Mm-hmm. So I go back to where my uncle learned from Father Kneipp in Germany, Bad Wurshofen, and I'll take a 4-week cure there where you go on strict diet of wholesome food, grains, lots of vegetables and fruit, fresh fruit.
Meat?
Little meat, not much, but they don't give much meat, mm-hmm. because too much meat is one of the reasons why people develop a lot of uric acid in their blood, and then uric acid brings on all the aches and pains in the joints, and you're generally under par if you have an excess of uric mm-hmm. acid, and that's an end product from eating a lot of meat.
But getting back to you now, I sidetracked just because I was curious about.
Well, there were a number of times when I had to test my philosophy against what was the accepted thing. For example, I went through my entire school education up through college, and I went to Europe numerous times. I have never had a vaccination in my life. I've never taken an aspirin tablet.
In your life?
In my life.
Have you cured headaches through?
Yeah, there are ways to cure headaches.
Have you ever gotten an illness which you have then cured through the use of herbs?
A number of them. When I was quite young, I guess in my teens, I developed in the back of my knee a peculiar sore that didn't heal, and I went to see Uncle Benedict about it. And he said, well, go to see Dr. Barovic. Barovic was a doctor here in New York, and it was a medical doctor. And he was asking me to go there and have that diagnosed. So I went, and Dr. Barovic says, oh, we're going to have to take a biopsy. That's either tuberculosis of the bone or cancer. Now, here I am, a teenage kid, and getting told this frightful thing.
Lovely prognosis.
Yeah, so I went back, and Benedict said, okay, go upstairs, because we had the clinic upstairs. He said, go upstairs and tell Dr. Grillo upstairs to give you some shortwave diathermy on that. And then in a month or so, when he was going to open Florida, the sanitarium, he says, come down there and that'll heal up then. The shortwave therapy, the heat, the internal heat, it cured that.
It cured it.
And it cured, whereas with the doctor, it was going to become more and more surgery and all that.
We only have about 2 minutes left. Some quick questions. If you had heart disease, would you try you yourself, not recommending it to someone else?
There was a period of time when I had high blood pressure, and I used the hawthorn berry, and I used some drops of herbal tinctures that are extracted from a mixture of herbs.
Did you cure your high blood pressure?
And my high blood pressure, and it included garlic in there, incidentally. And it, yes, it came back to normal. It came back to textbook. They call that textbook, right?
Normal.
Yeah, yeah.
If you did have cancer, would you personally, of course you have much more knowledge than the layperson could ever hope to acquire, would you try herbs first?
My thought, which I'll say now, I don't know how, I believe that I would be able to, that I'd be strong enough to say, I'm going to try the grape cure. Because the grapes,
which is?
Well, the grapes, it's a book that I also published called The Grape Cure by Johanna Brandt. And she's a woman from South Africa, Johannesburg. She cured herself of cancer by going strictly on grapes. And naturally, one of the byproducts is that you become skin and bones practically. But in the grapes, there's some sort of element, some essential minerals or something that affects that blood chemistry that allows the cancer to grow, and it will reverse it.
Do you know our time is up? Are there any negative effects to herbs in one, yes or no, to taking herbs?
Well, the only negative effect is if you overdo it.
Overdose.
Yeah, and some of the herbs which are clearly marked in the book are harmful if not taken according to the directions very carefully.
Thank you very much for being our guest.
It's my pleasure.
We've been talking to John Lust. He's a naturopath and author of the herb book, Drink Your Troubles Away, and the publisher of many other books on health. I'm Jessie Gray. The program is Personalities. Have a good week.